So let's get into a little bit in terms of the lessons learned. So this project is one you mentioned, it's a cost share. So you as project manager, you're overseeing this work here at Glen, which means workers here at Glen, but also at the contractor site. And I'm curious if you can talk about what are some of the lessons learned or best practices, challenges you've experienced in terms of managing, providing oversight to a project for out-of-house work.
Okay. So when I first took the job, the deputy project manager actually was in residence so the contractor's Aerojet Rocketdyne is our prime contractor, and the plant for where they do their electric propulsion work is in Redmond, Washington. And so he was actually on site there. So he was on there, extended TDY. He had been there probably on the order of 2 years at the time.
Okay.
So that in itself is a huge benefit, working with a contractor like that. And it's not something you can always implement just because of, really you're talking about what, having people travel out there, for example. But he was actually able to move with his family out there, and that really was beneficial. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to stay there, but
I would imagine
it really has some benefits because you're there. You can really make some decisions. You also get a sense of how the company operates, how they're running the project, and you really, he was able to sit in on all their day-to-day meetings, and it was really a huge benefit for the project for him to be able to be out there and operate that way.
I imagine it's a benefit for both sides of the equation, for both the contractor and for NASA to have somebody in location with embedded with the contracting team, especially during the early part of the project.
Yeah.
What kinds of other tactics or strategies have you used, or has the project used to really work well with the contractor?
The one thing I've seen, it's just been my experience, is that it's really just there can be so much communication problems, so many communication problems with the contract, especially, again, we're in Cleveland, they're in Redmond, Washington. There's a 3-hour time difference is just one piece of it. But just making sure that the right people are talking to each other. And even though we have a fairly small team here at Glen, that's one of the things I noticed when I first started was that, some of the people just, they're in their world and they're doing their thing, but they're not tagging up with the right people, either at the contractor or even sometimes within ourselves here at Glen. But so communication is a huge thing.
Yeah, this is a theme that we've been seeing in other virtual PM challenge sessions, that in order to make good decisions, you need to have the right people in the room working on the right thing at the right time.
Right.
And it seems that there's always the temptation of, I've seen when you put work in front of an engineer, or particularly a challenge in front of an engineer, for them to get a little tunnel vision and be focused on their work and not necessarily integrating with other people.
Right. Making sure we're all headed towards the same goal.
Yeah. Because even though we're all in the same work, all on the same project, all working to the same purpose, what I think this requirement or this test data might mean is that it could be different from the way that you interpret this requirement or this test data.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've seen that. That's something I've seen, when you get 2 people in the room and it's clear to me that they are not talking about the same thing, and then just working through that.
Yeah.
So that, okay, this is what we're trying to do here, and get them both to see, sometimes it's each other's point of view, but a lot of times, sometimes it's just, this is, let's get both of you thinking along the same lines and working towards that solution, right?
Terry, that's a really interesting point about one of the values of being a project manager is you have some perspective, distance from the day-to-day of any particular system or subsystem, that you can play that role. You can see, these 2 people are not talking, they're not on the same page, even though they may not know they're not on the same page.
Correct. Yeah.
So I imagine a lot of your job is just literally making sure that everyone is working together at the same time in lockstep.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes, but
Yeah.
right.
Any other advice that or lessons learned from your experience working with a contractor? Having someone embedded is important. Making sure everyone's on the same page through routine communication is really important. Are there other things that other project managers should keep in mind?
Just having the plan Bs, right? Having plan Bs in your back pocket, because again, that's just the nature of what we do here at NASA.
Yeah.
We're going to have technical problems.
Yes.
Things are going to go wrong, and it's good to have something in your back pocket. Well, if this goes wrong, we can either put something on hold and start working on something else, so that we at least don't lose all of our schedule. We can still move forward.
Yeah.
And resolve this while we're doing other things. So being able to do that and shift things around a little bit, it's really having some flexibility, having some idea about what, like I said, the plan B.
Yeah.
What are the other things that we could be doing, or if something goes wrong, how do we mitigate that, and being a little bit prepared for that.
Yeah. Terry, to what degree is that plan B planning happening here with you at NASA versus at the contractor, or is it happening on both sides of the equation, or is that mostly something that you're doing as project manager?
I think, I try to do it with everybody, just as we're talking through, maybe more as our status, as we're, again, reviewing our schedule, looking at our plans forward, is just to be able to understand, if we have problems with this, what does that mean for our, like I said, the schedule.
So it sounds like in terms of the overarching lessons, having plan Bs, being on the same page, communication. Anything else in terms of advice you'd want to give people who are managing out of house work?
Yeah, communication is really what it's all about.
Yes.
And again, because really what you want to do is you want to develop that integrated team, and again, trust. We talked about that earlier too, where people are comfortable. The contractor and the government folks trust each other enough to share issues and problems. Because again, if they don't trust you, they're going to be a little hesitant to say, we've got a problem here. Where again, especially with the ion engines, we have a wealth of in-house expertise in their development and operation.
So how was trust built on this project in particular with the contractor?
I know for me, again, it's just, like I said, I try and do it just by making sure we're, you can't be too punitive when there's issues that come up. I think it's
not about blame, like you said.
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think and from the technical team, what I've seen is that they've worked well together, and at least some of them have known each other for a long time. And so that helps too. Again, is particularly a lot of the early work that was done on Next and the first phase that happened in the 2000s. Again, Aerojet was a contractor on that, and some of those folks
are involved in XC.
Yeah, exactly. And so that, I think just the nature of that really helped too.
Yeah, I've heard, what is the saying, that legacy hardware is really helpful when you also have legacy people.
Right.
Heritage hardware.
Absolutely.
Heritage hardware and heritage people go together. Yes.
Yeah, that's real important.
I can understand that.
Yes.
Well, Terry, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you again for joining us in the NASA Virtual PM Challenge.
Oh, you're welcome. I was happy to do it.